Hey everybody! Today I'm going to be doing another paint tutorial. I will upload another gaming tutorial later, but for this we're going to do a necron overlord. For this we're going to paint him in the paint scheme of Dynasty nihilakh, and we're going to focus on the phase blades today. So for today we're going to focus on painting the blue and gold on the nihilakh Dynasty. I painted some gold off camera, but I'm going to do another coat just in case. So let's begin. For the nihilakh Dynasty, like for what I did with one of my necrons like a couple months ago, and mostly blue and gold. So let's get started, shall we? So for this part, we're going to paint the armor first, and we're going to start off with Sotek green. If you don't have Sotek green, you can of course use the popular Thousand of Suns, but I just love using Sotek green for my thousands, for my nihilakh Dynasty. Take some Sotek green out of the pot. Very good, and thin it down a little bit, but not too much, with a little bit of water. Perfect. Alright, so what we're going to do, this may take a couple layers, but do not worry. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to paint all the parts of this with Sotek green, and then we're going to begin, and this is a layer paint, so we might need another layer or two, but don't worry, it's completely fine. If you hit the orbs, don't worry. I'm going to show you a really nice glow effect later. Oh, and the reason why these guys are already like metallic is because I got a friend of some cool guy traded me this model the other day. And he's already base coated. The silver was actually nice, and I just need to paint it over for the nihilakh Dynasty. That's all. Alright, there we go. Let me see. Is there any other details I probably need? The blue? Yes, there is. For the Sotek green, we're going to do another optional step, but that's pretty much it. So, there we go. That's all the blue. Now, for this part, we are going to paint the crest blue, so that way it ties in a little bit. So, let me make sure I turn this over the right way so I can see. I'm painting the back of the head crest. If you can't really see it, I'm sorry. It's a little hard to film that part. Okay. Alright, there we go. And then we're going to paint the nihilakh stripe. Basically what this is that if you take the Sotek green, and then there's already a ridge right here, so we can just paint over that with this. Alright, that's the blue pretty much done, and we do need, just making sure I'm layering up below a little bit so it has a nice solid layer. Alright, there we go, the layer is now solid. Alright, now, what we're going to move on to now is going to add some gold. So I did add some gold earlier, like off camera, but we're going to add some more gold. For this, we're going to use an army painter paint. I know I don't really use army painter, but I do like their metallics. So for this, we're going to use Greedy Gold by Army Painter. So, pick up the metallic paints. Okay, shake up the paint, make sure it's shaken up good. Alright, so, take a little bit of the squeeze bottle, and just a little bit of gold, and just a little bit of paint. We don't need much. Let's make sure I close the thing properly. Okay, there we go. Make sure I closed it first. Okay, so we're not going to thin this down because it already comes pre-thinned, and also it's a metallic paint. You don't want to over-thin them. So what we're going to do is this. For the gold, basically we're going to finish off right here. We're going to do another coat, and if you notice I got some Sotek green on some of the parts of the head, don't worry, we're going to fix that right now. See, right here, with some Greedy Gold. There we go. And right here on these little parts of the chest. It may require 2 thin coats, but that's completely fine. I'm just using 1 because the shade we'll be adding really helps boost the gold effect. A little thin. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to paint the other sides of them if you can see them. But then again, it's fine. You can just leave it like that. So, now that the gold is done, we're going to do an optional step. For the nihilakh dynasty, it's just blue and gold. But I'm going to add another metallic detail just to break it up and give it more visual interest. For this, we're going to use Screaming Bell. Keep in mind this metallic is completely optional. You can do it, but you can use it if you don't want to. You don't have to. I just like using it to break up the color a little bit. So take some Screaming Bell, put that on the palette. We're not going to thin this down because this is a metallic paint, or it comes pretty thin. So what we're going to do is this. So find where you want to put the Screaming Bell, which is basically a brass color. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint this part right here. Let me just turn it over so you guys can see it right here. Alright, there we go. This part's almost done. And then we're going to paint the back side of it. So basically, if you can see the camera, I can see right here, and this is where it's going to go. Right here. Alright, now, we're going to see if we can find another area to put this, just to break it up. Not much, but I think we might want to do it on another part of the body. Let me just make sure I find it real quick, which will be proper. Oh, here it is. So, what we're going to do is basically, make sure I get enough paint, and we're just going to add it on one part of the arm. So, watch this. So we're going to add one part on the arm, basically around this area right here. Also, again, the Screaming Bell is entirely optional. I just like doing it just so that way I can have enough color breakup. All right, that's the Screaming Bell applied. Let me just make sure this is all correct. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to continue on something else first. So let me make sure I got the... Okay, I was just making sure the Sotek green was solid. So now we're going to focus on the phase blades. This is going to be my favorite part. So for this, we're actually going to take a contrast paint, but mix 2 of them together. For this, we're going to do a 50-50 mix. Let me just make sure I close my paint pot properly. For this, we're going to take a mix of contrast paints. We're going to use Cyan and Yellow, mixed with a little bit of Eldari Emerald. So you may be wondering, why am I mixing this? Is because it produces the nice tone of green I'm looking for. But if you want to, you can of course use Tesseract Glow or Warp Lightning if you want. Make sure it's kind of out of the way so the contrast paint doesn't mix with the metallic paint I applied earlier. Shake up the paints. Perfect. Alright, now, while I open the Eldari Emerald, I'm just going to shake up my Cyan and Yellow so that way it's properly shaken up. Alright, these paints are shaken up and ready to go. So, what we're going to do is going to do a 50-50 mix. I am going to wash my brush in between, so don't worry. So, for this, I'm going to use a little slightly larger brush. So for this, take 1 brush full of Eldari Emerald. We're going to put it right here. And just 2.5. Okay, then wash off the brush. Make sure there's no paint left, so that way you don't contaminate the yellow. I'm just drying off my brush. Close the Eldari Emerald so I know not to dip it in there. And then take some Cyan and Yellow. 1, 2. So equal mix. And then we're going to mix them together so it gets that nice bright green tone. Make sure to mix it thoroughly, and then we're going to be ready. Alright, so for this, you're going to go a little flat. So watch this. Let me put my hand on the table so I can show. So basically like this. We're going to go flat. And if you could do see a little pooling, you're more than welcome to remove it. I'm just letting it pool in certain areas to get that nice little glow effect that's on a phase blade. So right here. This is a Necron Overlord. I almost forgot. Okay. Alright, that's the phase blade base coated. Alright, so now with the phase blade base coated, now we're going to focus on washes for right now. So, we're going to focus on washes. Let me just make sure I close my hand in yellow so it doesn't spill. There we go. It's a little hard to close that paint pot. Okay, so for this, we don't really need to wash because the gaps in the armor on the blue armor are natural. So we're going to continue with just a little bit of highlights. For the Sotek green, we're going to highlight by using Temple Guard blue. So shake up the paints. If you see any shaking, that's just me shaking at the paint. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so for this, take some Temple Guard blue. Put it on the palette or the table, but just use a palette, not a table. Thin down the paint slightly, just so it has good consistency. Perfect. All right, so for the blue armor, so what we're going to do, we are going to add a wash here in a second, but we're also going to just paint it. So we're going to highlight all the edges. So right here. Highlight the back area right here. And let's see this part right here. Back. Highlight this area. We're not going to highlight the studs. We're just going to highlight the edges on top and on the sides. That's all. This edge as well. And then we're going to turn on to the other blue. Turn to the other blue part, which is going to be the head crest. Highlight just a little bit. Alright, that's pretty good. Alright, now with the blue highlighted, we're going to highlight the blue one last time before we add the wash. And for this, we're going to be using a brighter blue. We're going to use Baharoth blue. So, now, I'm going to wash off my brush, make sure and dry it off, make sure it's thoroughly clean. Okay, now, we're going to take some Baharoth blue. Let me open up the paint pot. Take some Baharoth blue, and right here. Thin it down a little bit. So, what we're going to do is going to highlight only in the sharpest corners of the model. So watch this. Oh, let me make sure my paint is unloaded and I actually thin it down before I say that. Perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. Make sure it's thinned. What we're going to do is going to highlight on the very sharpest details. So right here, I'll put it up close to the camera. So watch this. I'll highlight right here. There may be some blank spots. We're also going to go in between the lining a little bit. Same with this side, just a little bit. Right here. Okay. This side here. Okay, and we're going to move on the other side of the armor, which is on the back. So for right here again, just the sharpest details, like right here on the edges. You can also do them on the front if you wish. Okay, there we go. That's the Baharoth blue done. Alright, now, with the metallics now dry, we're finally going to shape the metallics. So, for the metallics, basically for the gold and stuff, we're going to use an Army Painter wash. For this, we're going to use Flesh Wash from Army Painter. So, shake up the washes. Always shake up the washes, because they do sediment at the bottom. Okay, make sure I shook up the wash perfectly, and yes I did. For this, take some wash, squeeze it out a little bit. There we go. Alright, we're going to use a slightly different brush. We're going to take something that can hold the wash. We're going to use, let me make sure I find the right one first. Okay, we'll use this brush. So, watch this. Take some with a flesh wash. Okay, so watch this. Ooh, sorry. Almost forget. So, watch this. Come on. Good thing it didn't get me. So, watch this. We're going to paint the gold with the flesh wash. And as you can see, it's shading it and it's giving more of the brown color, the gold color. And we're also going to do this on the Screaming Bell. You don't have to do it on the Screaming Bell. I'm just using it as an optional. Alright, there we go. That's the gold shaded. Alright, now with the gold now done, we're actually finished with the gold and the brass. So now we're going to move on to the phase blades. For this, it's going to be a little difficult, but don't worry, it's actually really fun. So, we're going to take mook green. So, and now, let's get started. Okay. Good thing it actually landed. Take some mook green, put on the palette, just a little bit. So, for this, we're going to highlight the sharpest areas of the phase blade. So right here, just along the edges, See, right here, only on the sides, not in between the lining, Same thing on the other side. Let me just make sure I turn this over so I can see it. Okay, there we go. Now, watch this. Gently highlight, and then we're going to go on the outside edge, on the other side of the blade. So right here. Oh, you can just wipe this part away. Okay, good. And then now for the other side that I was doing earlier. Alright, there we go. That's the phase blade highlighted. And now we're going to wait for that to dry. We're now going to do another green detail with the mook green. Let me just make sure I draw off my brush so the paint doesn't stick. Doesn't stay in my brush. Now we're going to paint the orbs. So for right here, take some mook green. Okay, and watch this. We're going to paint the orbs. So for right here, we have an orb right here. We have a one right here. And we also need the eyes. So I'm going to do this very carefully. Take a deep, deep breath and just hold your hand nice and steady. Actually, I'll wait to do the eyes in just a second. I almost made a mistake. Okay, mook green also in the orbs right here. You can also leave the eyes blank, but we are not going to paint them green. We're going to leave them blank. There we go, orbs. Perfect. Okay, it may seem a little weird, but guess what? We're going to add another effect here in just a second. All right, now, with the green almost done, so what we're going to do is going to finish off the miniature. So, what we're going to do is going to move on to the phase blade again while we wait for that orb to dry. So, what we're going to do with the phase blade is now we're going to add some tonal variation. And don't worry, it's just as simple. So, we're going to take another wash, Beal Tan Green. So, check out the washes. Alright, now, while I have the wash, I'm also going to switch to a thinner brush to paint in the eyes. We're going to use this longer one. So watch this. Make sure the brush is nice and stiff. Perfect. Now, we're going to zoom in on the eyes to make sure my camera picks it up. And then we're just going to gently dot in the eyes. There we go, perfect. All right, now we're going to move on to the phase blade, as I said. So now we're going to take a shade brush. Let me make sure I find it. I'm going to use my medium shade brush from Citadel. So watch this. Take some wash. We're not going to put this on the palette because we don't want it to contaminate with anything else. Make sure there's not much paint on your brush. And watch this. We're going to go focus on the outside of the phase blade. So watch this. Focus on the outside edge right here. Outside edge right here. Outside right here. And when you get to this part, just go up to this line right here. There we go. Other side. And I will have a gaming video uploaded later. I'm just doing a paint tutorial for right now because I have nothing else to do and I had the opportunity to use these. Alright, there we go. That's the phase blade effect done. Pretty cool. Alright, now, with the moot green on the orbs done, now we're going to finish off the orbs. For this, it may seem a little weird, but the effect is really awesome. So watch this. We're going to dry brush a paint onto the orbs. For this, I'm going to use my, let me make sure I find the right, okay, we're going to use a makeup brush because of its bristles, and we're going to dry brush, flash gets yellow. So, it may seem weird to dry brush yellow on a green, but watch this. When we add the green wash, it's going to look amazing. So, take some, flash gets yellow, and what we're going to do is wipe most of the paint off like this, and we only want a little bit on there. That's why it's called dry brushing. Perfect. Alright, so now, what we're going to do is dry brush all around the orbs. Don't worry if you get it on the armor, you can just add you can just fix it later. See, watch this. You put it on the orbs, has like a nice little glow effect. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Alright, now, it does look good, but now we're going to add the wash to even increase it, even more. So, for this, we're going to go back to Beagle Tan Green. So, watch this. This is where it gets awesome. So, watch this. Take the green wash. Make sure the pot doesn't close. Sometimes they do that. Come on. Perfect. Okay, now watch this. Unload the excess and watch this. Add the green around it. Soak it up a little bit. Put on the green armor if you wish. Alright, that's the orbs done. Look at that nice little glow effect. Alright, so that's how you paint the Necron Overlord in the nihilakh Dynasty. And I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will upload a game into the video later. Bye bye.